All right, so my name is Ismael Santos. I'm a QEP reading, writing, and speech tutor over at Learning Resources, Padron campus. And the session today is providing effective feedback. Now, I'm sure there's, oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Teresa. So in the interest of time, let's start with the learning objectives for this. Demonstrate how to provide feedback using a combination of strategies and understand how to express feedback that is focused and goal-oriented. So I do have a few quick, I suppose, icebreaker questions for you. So the first one, what questions should you ask at the beginning of every tutoring session? Now you can answer in the chat, or if you want to volunteer on the mic, please let me know, or let Teresa know as well. And so give you a moment. Writing assignment they're on, prompt. So A and C, when this is due, was your prompt. Oh, these are really good. Helps me also, like, were the students prepared? Oh, that's very good. I would say it's a combination of all those. Personally, and what has helped me with my own tutoring sessions and getting the student prepared, if they're unfamiliar, say, with the tutoring process, especially online, I just go all of the above. Like, how are you? Do you have something to work on? Because in some cases, the students may have been referred to tutoring, but they don't exactly know or have a set guideline or plan to get started. Oh, hello, new person to the session. Second question. So, second question. Every student needs the same help. True or false? So you can write in the chat as well. Give you a moment. Okay. Adriana says false. F false. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So yeah, definitely false. Like every student is not the same. The I believe in the opening remarks today, it's and the keynote speaker mentioned, equity. These issues and topics that not every student has the same level of access. And in tutoring, they could need help in a variety of different ways. And your job or your mission, hopefully, is to maneuver through that for the session and make sure that student gets the help they need. So, last question, as a form of icebreaker, how long should your average tutoring session take? Right in the chat as well. So, oh, you can't hear anything? Thank you, Carl. Uh, so, wait, Amanda, you can't hear me? Oh, let me turn on my. Can you hear me now? All right. So a lot of people said, D, let me know if there's any audio issues. I know sometimes. Oh, thank you, Teresa. And sometimes audio issues happen. May I have to exit the chat? Oh, all right. So, for the people who said D, 30 minutes, yes. And oh, thank you, Teresa. So 30 minutes. Oh, hello, hello, Susan. So 30 minutes should be the average tutoring session, and I will go over later on in the presentation what you can do in those 30 minutes to maximize the amount of time and get the best feedback for the student. So that out of the way, I mean, first of all, what do we mean by effective feedback or right feedback? Is it just higher grades, higher scores on essays, more consistent tutoring and follow-up sessions, or being able to correct old bad habits and mistakes? Is it a combination of everything? If you have your own ideas and your own thoughts on this, please put in the chat as well. I'd love to hear it. But in my opinion, effective feedback means, oh, it means a combination of all of these, but also pushing the student to be more of a critical thinker, to not focus solely on what I consider like short-term solutions. You know, it's not just to make it to the next grade or to make it to the next class. It's also preparing them to be more critical in their thinking, for the rest of their lives. And how do you do that in the time allotted for a tutoring session? It is very difficult, but I would say it's the bedrock for getting them started on that path. Let me go to the next one. So before going into the strategies themselves of what I consider can help you with the tutoring session, we have to look at some of the complications that happen before COVID in tutoring sessions and now in this new remote working landscape we find ourselves in. So in-person tutoring was already kind of a challenge, and in the way I saw it, it was mostly due to two reasons. One, for new students, it was unfamiliarity with tutoring and expectations for college work. I can say in my own experience, going from, say, Miami High, which, I mean, I mostly remember writing summaries of Shakespeare and then going straight to ENC 1101 at Padron and at Wolfson. The I had never heard of thesis statements. I did not know what was expected of me, and that was a whole learning curve. So for new students coming to tutoring who may not be familiar with the writing process, I mean that's a lot to handle. Like how do you reteach or help the student relearn some of these important issues? And then for follow-up sessions, which is the second reason, it's like how do you continue to improve the writing without fixating on those short-term solutions? And then, of course, transition to remote working occurred and tutoring changed. So let me go. No, the challenges of online tutoring, as you can see with the PowerPoint slide, one of them is technology, spotty Wi-Fi connections, glitches, maybe the document not appearing easily. I know I've had to help students even before the session really started, helping them navigate the new technology on Blackboard. Share application, share screen. Sometimes the connection doesn't work. It can be a lot to handle. And then trying to transition from that to the main focus of the tutoring session, which is working on essays, papers, that sort of thing. It can be a lot to handle. So, and also limitations on time. Maybe online connections aren't working as well as before. Digital feedback. All these things can be difficult to balance during online tutoring. So, so I've been using this term short-term solutions a lot at the beginning of this process. I mean, it's mostly a focus on those aspects of essays which help make the essay a little more readable. Run-on sentences, and I'm quoting another tutor from Padron campus here, who's having his own session right now. A sentence should have no more than 14 words. Otherwise, it runs the risk of being a run-on sentence. I use that all the time for my students, and it kind of helps them get started on, say, splitting up those run-on sentences, not fixating so much on getting all the information at one go. But it still feels like a short-term solution to me if they're coming back, if those students are coming back, for follow-up sessions and they're still focused on this or fragments, the use of commas. It can be helpful to say steer them around and let them know, you know, that they can keep working at this, they can keep practicing at it, but it shouldn't be their main focus. So, what should what should be the main focus of the long-term goals? I would say structural improvement, a thesis that is worked on and answered throughout the essay. Detailed analysis, it's the process of minimizing summary and having their own voice, and clear, consistent language and writing. So this can also come into effect with low order concerns versus high order concerns. So low order would be word spelling, sentence structure, run-on sentences, grammar. Higher order would be thesis statements, the purpose of the essay, all these things. So I know it's a lot of information to pack in at any given time. And how can this help you with, say, providing the feedback that will help that student out in their assignments? And it's tricky to figure out the best way to put this forward. So while it's easy, I would say, to separate short-term and long-term goals, how do you do that for a session? Every student is different. Every student has different needs and needs different help. So, I mean, my main helpful tip here is just outright asking the student. More more than anything else, the student will let you know not just what they need help on, but if you give them a moment to think, give a pause and say the conversation right before the tutoring session and ask them like, oh, what's the main focus you want to work on? Like, where do you feel you need, the most help at? They'll let you know. They'll just come out and say, oh, I need help with this, or this thesis seems, not not strong enough, or works cited. So I would say doing that at the very beginning, along with those kinds of questions I had at the beginning, can really help set the tone for the rest of the session. And also, I mean, it's entirely dependent on your style. I know the PowerPoint slide looks a little goofy at this present moment, but maybe that's my style, a little goofy. But it's entirely dependent on your own. Like, do you highlight and show the student what they need to work on? Do you stop and ask the student to go over the sentence or thesis? Thank you, Teresa. Do you like do you say paraphrase and ask if that's what they're working towards? I always try to uh, not only mirror what they're saying back or reflect on what they're working on, but I always leave questions saying, "Oh, so this is what you're working on, right?" Or "This is what you meant, right?" And styles can vary, but I would say effective feedback with three key components can help uh, push you in the right direction as well. Let me go. So, and this is something that I've had to figure out for myself many times in terms of tutoring sessions. Effective feedback means effective limits. In my own experience, and when I started out as a tutor, it was very easy to, sit down with the student and just take all the time in the world and have no clear focus for the session. Just go say line by line, and that would be the tutoring session. Even now I'm still wondering, oh, was that effective? Was that the best use of the time? Because I could sit down with the student for, well, as a recent example, for almost 2 hours, go line by line, ask them questions, and it still felt not that effective. It still felt like the student was focused on those same particular, say, mistakes or questions, and it wasn't really the best use of the time. So, with purpose and focus and effective strategies, I would say they do more for the student than a seemingly endless amount of time going over the same thing. That's my experience. So, and again, I remember the earlier question about the 30-minute limit. They should be the optimum amount of time needed for a tutoring session. The use of effective feedback strategies, they should be enough to at least guide the student to a place where they can start working. I know it can be difficult, especially now with what I mentioned, the online tutoring, the glitches. In my own experience, audio doesn't work, or the screen sharing is kind of acting funny. So that's why I put an asterisk. Like, depending on issues, or if you want to really stress an important point, you can cross that time limit or that supposed optimum amount of time for the feedback session. But I would still stress keep it to 30 minutes, and always leave the student with, say, a plan for the next session or a plan for the paper. So in my experience, uh, usually around Friday, around this time, there'd be a bunch of students needing help with an assignment, and it would be due Monday or Tuesday for ENC 1101, 1102. I'd always tell them, okay, look for these things, say run-on sentences, the structure of the paper, uh, double check how well your thesis is going, and come back to me on Monday or Tuesday, and we can work on it again. But this time, with that plan, that focus, it it becomes a little easier to jump to more important issues in the paper, the structure of it. So, so as I mentioned, what the student wants to focus on. The question I always have is like Word document or PDF. It, Nearly at the beginning of every session, you just go with that, and you at least know, okay, screen share or share file. That way, it becomes easier to manage. So, as I've been talking about, like, oh, effective strategies, effective this. What are the strategies? What are the possibilities? So I focus on active listening. Not just telling the student what to do for their paper, but like, what does the student feel is important in their work? Some students may want to focus more on a lot of information. My job in that case, and in my strategy of active listening, is like, okay, paraphrase, ask the student if that's what they're working towards. Oh, I have a hand up. Do you have a question? Oh, I think that one. Well, if you have a question, you can type in the chat as well. So when I think active listening, I think, okay, the student's working towards a particular goal. They've focused a lot of time and effort on this paper, for example. Who am I exactly to tell them, oh, just get rid of this stuff, do this, 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 and then see you next time? No, it's kind of a process. It's a dialogue. So, you know, the student knows what they, at least on some level, what they really want to work towards, what they want to focus on. I think that's important. Now, the second strategy, if I can go there, guided questions. As I mentioned earlier, guided questions can help set up expectations and the main focus. So some examples and some of these I think I saw in the chat as well. Is this what you meant? Where's your thesis? How can you rephrase this better? How would you edit this? My favorite kind of quick writing exercise, and let me take a quick water break, is to ask the student where they see a run-on sentence, and I ask them, okay, how would you split this? And I wait and I wait, and sometimes it can be 5 minutes of just waiting for the student to respond or type in the chat. But usually they do. Usually, it gets them thinking. It makes them editors of their own work, which I would say is always helpful, because in a lot of tutoring sessions and in future English courses and more paper writing, you're not always going to have, I would say, the most amount of time to sit down and really go over piece by piece. Sometimes, papers are due, and you just need to be able to help the student guide themselves in a way when it comes to paper writing. It becomes tricky. But with these kinds of questions and those kinds of exercises, I would say that strategy can help them as well. And the last one, so compliment, criticize, compliment. I believe I picked this up during I want to say the student boot camp a few months ago, and I felt this was, an awesome strategy. So uh, I would say, and with some students who maybe suffer from imposter syndrome or are relatively new to the college experience, or who feel their writing is not that great, I would say it's the strategy's really helpful for them as well. It's like, okay, compliment, say what they did right. So uh, say for example, student comes with a research paper who it may not be in the proper formatting, it may not have the best citations, but if they're hitting the main points of the assignment, for example, they got a strong thesis, I'm like, okay, you have a strong thesis, you're setting up the plan for the rest of the essay. Criticize, pointing out an area that needs more development work. So with that same example, some students just drop quotes and citations at the end of every paragraph and don't expand. I would say, okay, your thesis is good, but you need to expand and not end a paragraph with a quote, because the professor wants to hear your voice. They want to hear your analysis, and then and that feedback strategy would compliment them and say that they're on the right track. If they fix these things, their paper is good. So I use that strategy a lot, and I would say it's helpful. So now, in the interest of time, there are 3 scenarios I have, uh, I guess, written down, and with these strategies that I've just gone over, if you want to say in the chat or on mic, let me go. So first scenario, 10 minutes to closing. So you're online or in person, and it's 10 minutes to closing. All the other tutors have packed up, ready to head out. But then a student comes in and they're in a rush to get the paper done. Well, their essay is due later, and you want to help. So what strategy can you use, or what combination, to make sure that student gets effective feedback in that very, very short amount of time? And if anyone wants to volunteer to answer this, please do so. Oh no, that's great, Teresa. Actually, as soon if there's a part or parts of the essay he or she what they specifically struggle with or weren't able to complete, ask them for the main concerns, try and focus on that. Yeah, absolutely. I would even say you can go in and I think I've done this before with some students who say the rest of their paper is looking fine from the little time I can spend, checking over, but say, a focus on the thesis that can be the best part as well. Skim the essay, identify the major problem, ask them what they are most worried about, and provide appropriate advice. Yeah, absolutely. These are all great. You could also always say, give them uh, the three absolute necessities for that essay, and also see if they want to schedule another appointment for the following day or the following week, and so you can go more in depth and help them out even more. So this really good. Thank you. So situation 2 coming up. A student does not have anything. A student shows up for tutoring and says they need help on an assignment. However, they have nothing. They have brought nothing, and they have no real idea what to do with the assignment. So, what is the best way to help the student? And make sure they come away from the session with a plan of action for their assignment. I'll say it has happened a few times when a student comes for a session and they need help with ideas, for example, or they need help understanding the instructions for the assignment, but they have, say, no written down text to share. So, what do you do in that case? The student for the instructions, asking if he or she understands the instructions. Spend time discussing the instructions mostly. Experience this a lot with students working on visual analysis of art installation. Really have to push students depending on whether they actually have been paying attention or read the book. Ask them if they sought help for their professor. Oh, that's good. Oh, good morning, Myra. No, these are all really good. These are all, I mean, help them understand the requirements, then figure out the first steps to getting done. Well, they need to find a topic first, get articles, watch a video. Yeah, absolutely. And also like brainstorming session, also discuss strategies to plan. Yeah, absolutely. All of these are great. I would also even say like what kind of assignment, like is it MLA, APA, that can change as well. They can, is it research paper? Is it reflective? Oh, I agree with Tess. Most of the students don't know what to do because they don't understand instruction. Yeah, I mean, it can be tricky. Yeah, and tutors are a less intimidating source to get feedback on being lost rather than a perfect. Yeah, that's absolutely true. In certain cases where students say come to me and need help, uh, I also say if I'm embedded in their class, for example, if I'm directly in their class, I look up on Blackboard, say essay instructions or the template, what they need for the essay, and I'm like, I try to get the student to understand, okay, this is what the professor requires from you. It's not uh, it's not just one thing, it's all of these different things. If you do these different things, you will pass and do good on this essay. Oh, we can be a gateway to a discussion with the professor. Absolutely. Yeah. I think the most recent example of this was I want to say a literary analysis that I was helping a student out with, but they were not understanding the instructions. They would just repeat, I suppose, the summary of the novel, and I kept pushing the student and with the instructions on screen, like, no, the professor wants this. You have to answer this question. Oh, I usually split up the instructions so that they understand the parts and they can go to the whole after that. Oh, that's actually, yeah, that's perfect. All right, so thank you. All right, so last situation, because in the interest of time, I don't want to take up too much. So this is a little tricky. So student does not like the feedback. So student has come for help on an assignment. Professor has referred them to tutoring, sit and help them with the essay. But for every suggestion or edit that you feel will help their paper, they're resistant. They do not want to do it. So how do you get the student to not only listen up, accept the feedback, but maybe be more open to constructive criticism and the realities of, say, their paper and then the future of what they're going to work on in the rest of the class or classes? this is a tricky one. I'll give a few more moments, and then I'll provide an example of when this has happened to me and what I tried to do for that session. Talk with them about first instead of making suggestions. Maybe they'll be more open when they feel you understand what they want. I would ask them what they would change or do. Yeah, yeah, because I think it's come back to what I initially said very early on in the presentation, that you don't want to just tell the student what to do. You want to figure out like, oh, what are they looking for? What is their voice? Oh, and so ask why they are hesitant, then ask them to discuss how they think their current essay fulfills the requirements with you. Discuss how the suggestions and edits align with assignment requirements. Ask them what they think they need help with. Be open to their feedback. Tell them that your feedback, yeah, are only suggestions. Yeah, but it's difficult to work with a student who is resistant. Ask the student what he or she wants to get out of tutoring. It usually is improve the grade. Try to suggest to the student that your suggestion will probably help improve his or her work. Yeah, no, these are all, yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you all so much. Yeah, it's difficult to help assure the student on some level that you're not, say, trying to take over their paper. You're not trying to write the paper for them. You're not trying to stifle what they're trying to say. You're just trying to help them along in this case. Oh, I think I would probably pause and take a step back and ask the student about possible other factors affecting them. Sometimes people are just agitated after working so hard, then having someone come in and point out their weak spot. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's a really good way of handling it as well. Especially, I would say this happens often during midterms and finals. I mean, it's a crazy time. It can be very hectic. There's a lot of papers. There's a lot of homework. People say, well, in this new in this new world we find ourselves in, it's even trickier now. Balancing everything, making sure your grades are going well, your life is going well. It's a lot to handle for a student, especially for a new student, say, relative to the college experience. It's a lot to balance. So absolutely. So and oh, be sure to point out the strength. Absolutely, yes. So just a quick example before moving on. I think there was a student I helped out with recently where, I mean, they were still working on literary analysis, but they kept saying in the chat, like, oh, I don't know how to analyze. I don't know how to analyze. And it was like that for 2 hours, truthfully. And it was difficult to try to get the student to see that them saying that is not helping, their paper. Them kind of point out their shortcomings, or what isn't working in the paper is not going to help them. What is going to help them is like setting down a plan, but also figuring out, okay, what's working in this paper, what's really good here. So I would ask them again, like, okay, what are some quotes you can use, say, for this literary analysis? What is the main thing you're trying to say for this thesis, for example? And every time they were inching closer and closer to that, to those ideas, I would say, okay, yeah, keep going. You're on the right track. I'm here to help. And truthfully, I think they got something out of it. They had a plan of action, and I think future sessions became much easier to help them open up and listen for more feedback. So yeah, absolutely. So that's the final question. That's a bit of a summary of everything. So what is a helpful, necessary strategy for tutors to have in tutoring sessions? So you can just quickly. Thank you, Susan. Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So, as a conclusion, and for a chance to everyone get some coffee, stretch. Uh, so, effective feedback is critical to improving students' writing over the long term and their thinking. I would argue it does not only exist during the session, but can stay with the student long after the session is over. As a quick just story, um, there was a student I was helping with who recent, first gen college student from Venezuela in the honors college, so a lot of writing, a lot of stuff to handle. And I would have sessions two to three times over the week, over the semester as well. And by the time they finished, they were fantastically improved. They were so far ahead of where they were before. And I was very happy. And there's still sessions, there's still stuff to work on, but you can see the progress that more tutoring sessions, more effective feedback can do for a student. So remember, the three strategies can be used in combination and set limits and a focus for the session. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you again. And if anyone has any questions, please let me know. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you, Meyer. I'm just going to put some coffee emojis. I think we all need them. Oh, what do I mean by imposter syndrome? I would say, and this is not so much just limited to, say, new students, first gen students, even say returning students, older students who feel their work is not up to par, or they feel like they're missing something. I would say that imposter syndrome of like, oh man, why am I even trying this? Why am I even doing this? I'm terrible at this. I can I can only debilitate them, debilitate their thinking, their writing, but it destroys the session. I would even say it destroys an ability to be able to believe in yourself, so that the student can keep working. When that happens, when I've met some students or helped some students who feel like that, I tell them, listen, you're here for a reason. You're not accepted just randomly. You're not in this class randomly. You're working towards something, and you've done this before, or you've faced these challenges before, and you can keep on doing it. I'm speaking also from my own imposter syndrome that I've face and continue to face on a daily basis. It's not easy, but you keep doing it, you keep trying it, and you keep working. So that's what I feel is the imposter syndrome in the students. Oh, and thank you, Susan. So any more questions? Any concerns? Any ideas? 'Cause I do believe we're supposed to be back in the main room by 11:45, if I'm not mistaken. I want to make sure we all get there. Oh, thank you so much. Let me stop sharing the power. Actually, I could share just one last thing. I believe it's available in the materials, and it's just like a handout. Hopefully, yeah, just a handout for the three strategies. You can take what you save. It's there. So plus, I like working on handouts and showing them off. So please, thank you again for attending the session. Please get some coffee, stretch, and then see you in the main room. Thank you again.